Yuna sat at her communications station, watching the screen with growing fear. Another signal had just gone silent. That made 11 colony worlds in 3 days. 11 worlds that had been full of life and now sent nothing but static. She pressed her fingers against her temples and tried to focus. The research station orbiting Prima had become the only safe place in the sector, and even that safety felt temporary. Through the large windows of the communications room, she could see the peaceful blue and green world below. It looked so calm, so normal, but the galaxy around them was burning. "Yuna, are you getting anything?" Jinwoo asked as he walked into the room. The xenobiologist looked tired. He had been working for 30 hours straight, trying to understand the enemy that was destroying everything in their path. "Nothing good," Yuna replied. She played back the last transmission they had received. A Velen mother's voice filled the room, breaking with terror as she begged for someone to save her children. Then the sound of explosions, then silence. Jinwoo closed his eyes. "How many?" 11 worlds confirmed destroyed. We're still getting distress signals from the 12th, but it won't last long. Yuna pulled up the tactical display. Red markers showed where colonies had been. Now they were just red markers on a map. "The Vesh are moving fast. They're not occupying the worlds. They're harvesting them." "Harvesting?" Jinwoo looked at the biological data he had compiled. "You mean they're taking the populations?" "For food," Yuna said quietly. "At least that's what the intelligence suggests. The Vesh Dominion sees every other species as prey. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They just consume and move on." Jinwoo sat down heavily. As humans, they both knew about predators. Earth had been full of them. But this was different. This was organized genocide on a massive scale. The door opened and Counselor Threx entered. The Valen commander of the research station moved on 6 legs, his insect-like body covered in the formal robes of his office. His compound eyes reflected the emergency lights that now ran constantly throughout the station. "The Coalition fleet has engaged the Vesh near the 4th colony," Threx announced. His translator made his voice sound calm, but Yuna could see his antenna trembling. "We should have results within the hour." "The Coalition fleet wasn't built for war," Yuna said carefully. She didn't want to insult her commander. But the truth needed to be spoken. "Your ships are designed for trade and research. The Vesh have warships." "We are a civilized people," Threx said stiffly. "We will negotiate. We will find common ground. Violence is the last resort of primitive minds." Yuna bit back her response. She had heard this argument before. The Valen Coalition believed deeply in peace. They had built an entire civilization on the principle that all conflicts could be resolved through dialogue. It was a beautiful idea. It just wasn't working against an enemy that didn't want to talk. An hour later, the results came in. The Coalition fleet was destroyed. 47 ships had engaged the Vesh Armada. 0 ships returned. The 4th colony went silent 10 minutes after that. Threx stood in the command center, staring at the empty tactical display. His antenna had stopped trembling. Now they just hung limp. "This cannot be happening," he whispered. "We followed all protocols. We offered tribute. We requested mediation. How can they simply refuse to communicate?" Navigator Quiln, a Marathi who looked like an intelligent seal covered in blue scales, was already plotting escape routes. "Commander, we should evacuate the station. The Vesh will be here in less than a week." "And go where?" Threx asked. "Every world in this sector is either destroyed or will be soon. We have nowhere to run." Yuna stood up. "Then we call for help." "From whom?" Threx turned his compound eyes toward her. "The Coalition fleet is gone. The nearby sectors have their own problems. Who is left?" Yuna took a deep breath. She knew what she was about to suggest would not be popular. "We call humanity." The command center went completely silent. Even the background hum of the station seemed to quiet. "Absolutely not," Threx said firmly. Humanity has been under quarantine for 80 years. They are too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. They're also too far away to help even if they wanted to, Quiln added nervously. The human barrier is 3 sectors distant. By the time any message reaches them, we'll all be dead. Jinwoo stepped forward to stand beside Yuna. What if they already have ships closer than we think? What if they've been watching the borders this whole time? Even if they have, Threx said, I will not authorize contact. The Council was very clear when they voted to isolate humanity. Your species responded to a minor pirate raid by destroying 3 solar systems. You killed billions to save thousands. You are more dangerous than the Vesh. That's not what happened, Yuna said quietly. But I know you won't believe me. I know the story that gets told about humanity. We're the monsters that the galaxy locked away. She walked to her communications console and began typing commands. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls. What are you doing? Threx demanded. My job, Yuna replied. I'm a communications officer. I'm communicating. She pulled up frequencies that hadn't been used in decades, ancient human military channels that should have been abandoned. She didn't know if anyone was listening. She didn't know if humanity even maintained listening posts anymore, but she had to try. This is Research Station Prima, Valen Coalition, Yuna spoke into the transmitter. We are under attack by the Vesh Dominion. 12 colony worlds have fallen. Billions are dead. The Coalition fleet has been destroyed. We are requesting immediate military assistance. She paused, then added the words that might doom them or save them. Humanity, if you're listening, we need you. She sent the message on repeat across all the old channels. Then she sat back and waited. Threx was furious. You had no authorization. You have violated quarantine protocols. When the Council hears of this... The Council is dying, Jinwoo interrupted. All of them. Every world, every ship, every station. In a week, maybe 2, the Vesh will have consumed this entire sector. Yuna did what she had to do. No one is coming, Quiln said from his navigation station. Humanity won't help us. Why would they? We locked them away and called them monsters. Yuna stared at her screen, watching the message repeat over and over. She didn't know if Quiln was right. Maybe humanity had forgotten about the rest of the galaxy. Maybe they didn't care anymore. Maybe they had decided the galaxy deserved whatever happened to it. But she had to hope. Hope was all they had left. 3 days passed. The Vesh grew closer. Long-range sensors detected their armada at the edge of the system. 200 ships, all built for one purpose: war. Yuna hadn't slept. She maintained her vigil at the communications station, listening to the silence where her message had gone. Then, on the 3rd day, the sensors began screaming. Massive gravitic distortions appeared at the system's edge. Not where the Vesh were coming from the opposite direction. From the dark space beyond the mapped territories. Something huge was arriving. The science officer called out readings that seemed impossible. Energy signatures off all scales. Multiple capital-class vessels dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Threx rushed to the main display. What he saw made his legs weaken. 17 ships appeared in perfect formation. Each one was larger than anything the Valen Coalition had ever built. Their hulls were dark gray, designed for war, bristling with weapons. They moved with precision that spoke of endless training. Yuna's console beeped, an incoming transmission on human frequencies. She opened the channel with shaking hands. Research Station Prima, this is Admiral Tae Yang of the 3rd Deathworlder Defense Fleet. We received your message. We're here to help. Please transmit enemy positions and prepare for fleet operations. Yuna started laughing and crying at the same time. They had come. Against all logic, against 80 years of isolation, humanity had answered. Threx stared at the human warships on his display. He had called for peace. He had gotten war instead. But perhaps he thought war was exactly what they needed. The human fleet hung in space like silent predators. Yuna couldn't stop staring at them through the observation windows. She had never seen human warships before. Nobody in this sector had. For 80 years, humanity had been locked behind their barrier, isolated from galactic civilization. Now they were here, and they looked ready for anything. "Shuttle approaching from the flagship," the traffic controller announced. "They're requesting permission to dock." Counselor Threx stood rigid in the command center. His antenna twitched nervously. "Grant permission, but increase security around the docking bay. Post guards at every entrance." "You think they'll attack us?" Jinwoo asked quietly. "I think we know nothing about what they'll do," Threx replied. "That's what makes them dangerous." Yuna and Jinwoo made their way to the docking bay. They were the only humans on the station, so it made sense they would greet the new arrivals. Yuna felt her heart pounding. These were her people, but also strangers. What had humanity become in 80 years of isolation? The shuttle was sleek and efficient, painted in the same dark gray as the warships. It docked with barely a sound. The airlock cycled and the door opened. Admiral Tae-Yang stepped out first. He was tall and lean, with short black hair going gray at the temples. His uniform was simple but well-made, with rank insignia on the shoulders. His eyes scanned the docking bay with professional attention, taking in every detail. Behind him came Captain Hyunwoo, commander of the dreadnought Indomitable. He was younger, maybe 40, with the kind of face that could smile easily but wasn't smiling now. Two Marines in combat armor flanked them, hands near their weapons but not threatening. Tae-Yang walked directly to Yuna and Jinwoo. He studied them for a moment, then nodded slightly. "Communications Officer Yuna, Xenobiologist Jinwoo. Thank you for your message. It gave us the information we needed to respond quickly." His voice was calm and measured, professional. Yuna relaxed slightly. "Thank you for coming, Admiral," she said. "We didn't know if anyone was listening." "We're always listening," Tae-Yang replied. "Just because we're quarantined doesn't mean we stopped paying attention to what happens out here." Threx arrived with a security detail of 20 guards. The Valen commander positioned himself carefully, keeping distance between himself and the humans. "Admiral Tae-Yang, I am Counselor Threx, commander of this station. While I appreciate your arrival, I must protest the unauthorized presence of human military forces in Coalition space. The quarantine is irrelevant now," Tae-Yang interrupted gently. "Your fleet is destroyed. Your colonies are burning. Your government is in chaos. Someone sent a distress call and we answered it. You can file a formal complaint after we deal with the Vesh." Threx's antenna trembled with anger, but he couldn't argue with the logic. "We need a complete tactical briefing," Hyunwoo said. "Everything you know about the Vesh fleet composition, their attack patterns, their technology. We have 6 hours before they enter weapons range." 6 hours? Quiln the navigator had followed Threx to the docking bay. "Our calculations showed they were at least 2 days away." "Your calculations assumed they would maintain current speed," Tae-Yang explained. "Our sensors detected them accelerating 3 hours ago. They know we're here. They're rushing to attack before we can prepare proper defenses." The meeting moved to the command center. Yuna and Jinwoo compiled everything they knew about the Vesh, while the human officers studied the data with frightening intensity. 200 ships, Hyunwoo muttered, scrolling through the tactical display. "Against our 17. "The numbers are not favorable," Threx said nervously. "Perhaps we should attempt communication with the Vesh, negotiate a withdrawal." Tae-Yang looked at Threx with something that might have been pity. "Counselor, the Vesh sent a message to every world they attacked. It was always the same. Surrender and be consumed quickly, or resist and be consumed slowly. They don't negotiate. They don't compromise. They're an extinction-level threat to every species they encounter. But surely there must be some diplomatic solution." "There isn't," Jinwoo interrupted quietly. "I've analyzed their biology, their social structure, their entire civilization. They view all other species as food, not equals, not potential allies. Food. There's no negotiating with that. Threx looked like he wanted to argue more, but he fell silent. A young human woman in a flight suit entered the command center. She had sharp eyes and moved with the confidence of someone who knew exactly how dangerous she was. "Admiral, Reaper Squadron is ready for launch," she reported crisply. "Thank you, Commander Minji. Stand by for my order." Minji saluted and left. Threx watched her go with wide eyes. "You have fighter squadrons? Those went out of military fashion centuries ago." "They went out of fashion because most species developed automated drones," Taeyang explained. "But drones can be hacked, jammed, or confused. A skilled pilot can't be. We kept our fighter wings because they're effective." Hyunwoo brought up the human fleet composition on the main display. "We have 5 dreadnoughts, 8 cruisers, and 4 carriers. Each carrier holds 30 fighters. Our dreadnoughts carry enough firepower to level a continent. Our cruisers are built for speed and precision strikes." "That's still only 17 ships," Quiln pointed out nervously. "Quality over quantity," Taeyang replied. "We've been preparing for this kind of fight for 80 years. We knew someday someone would need us again." A Marine colonel entered the command center. He was built like a wall, with scars on his face that spoke of hard experience. "Colonel Do-yeon reporting, sir. My battalions are ready to begin evacuation protocols for the station." "Evacuation?" Threx stood up quickly. "We're abandoning the station?" "We're evacuating non-essential personnel to the inner colonies," Taeyang corrected. "But we're also fortifying this station. Colonel Do-yeon's Marines will turn it into a defensive position. If the Vesh get past our fleet, they'll have to fight for every meter." "You're going to fight?" Threx couldn't seem to understand. "You're actually going to engage 200 warships with 17? Taeyang turned to face the Velen commander directly. "Counselor, I understand your people value peace. That's admirable. But the universe doesn't care about your values. Sometimes peaceful species need someone willing to fight on their behalf. That's why you called us." "I didn't call you," Threx said stiffly. "Yuna acted without authorization." "Then I guess you should discipline her after we save your station," Hyunwoo said dryly. Do-hyun's Marines began moving through the station with incredible efficiency. They set up defensive barriers, installed heavy weapons at key corridors, and transformed civilian spaces into military strongpoints. What should have taken weeks took them hours. Yuna watched them work with a mixture of pride and worry. These were humans, her people. But they were also warriors in a way she had never been. They moved with purpose, every action calculated, every position chosen for maximum tactical advantage. Jinwoo stood beside her. "We spent 80 years in isolation. What did we do with that time?" "We prepared," said a voice behind them. They turned to find Taeyang standing there. "Every human child learns history. We learn about Earth, about how our world tried to kill us every day. We learn about the galaxy, about how civilized species decided we were too dangerous to exist among them." "That must have been hard," Yuna said softly. "It was necessary," Taeyang replied. "It taught us who we are. We're not conquerors. We're not monsters. We're survivors. And when survivors see someone in trouble, they help. That's what we do." An alert sounded through the station. The sensor officer called out urgently. "The Vesh fleet is increasing speed again. They'll be in weapons range in 90 minutes. Taeyang activated his communicator. "All ships, this is Admiral Taeyang. Begin combat operations. Minji, launch all fighters. Hyunwoo, bring us about to intercept heading. All crews to battle stations." Through the observation windows, the human fleet began to move. The massive dreadnoughts rotated to face the incoming threat. The carriers launched wave after wave of fighters, each one moving with precision. The cruisers spread out into a wide formation. Threx watched with growing horror. "This is really happening. We're going to war." "No," Taeyang corrected quietly. War came to you 12 days ago. We're just the response. The Vesh sent their own message then. It played across all frequencies, meant to terrify, meant to break morale. Surrender or die. Your species will feed our hatcheries. Your worlds will nourish our young. Resistance is meaningless. Taeyang listened to the message without expression. Then he opened a channel back to the Vesh fleet. His response was simple, direct, absolutely human. Come and try. The Vesh armada accelerated to attack speed. 200 warships against 17. The odds were terrible. The Vesh had never known defeat. They had never fought humans before. Yuna stood in the command center, watching the two fleets race toward each other. In minutes, they would meet. In minutes, they would learn if humanity's 80 years of preparation had been enough. The Deathworlder fleet was ready. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what came next. The first shot came from the human fleet. It happened so fast that most of the Valen observers missed it. One moment, the two fleets were racing toward each other across empty space. The next moment, 15 Vesh ships simply exploded. "What just happened?" Threx demanded, staring at his tactical display. "Railgun strike," Yuna explained, listening to the human fleet communications. "They fired solid projectiles at 0.3% of light speed. The Vesh shields are designed for energy weapons. They didn't even slow down the kinetic rounds." Jinwoo pulled up the sensor data. "The human ships fired from maximum range. The projectiles were so fast the Vesh didn't have time to evade. They didn't even know they were under attack until they started dying." On the main screen, the human fleet maintained perfect formation. The dreadnoughts were cycling their railgun systems, preparing for the next volley. But the Vesh were already adapting. "Enemy fleet spreading out," the sensor officer reported. "They're reducing target density." "Smart," Admiral Taeyang's voice came through on the command channel. "But it won't be enough. Minji, take your fighters in. Show them what we can do up close." Through the observation windows, Yuna watched the fighter squadrons accelerate. 120 small craft, each piloted by a human, raced toward the Vesh armada at speeds that would have killed most species from the G-forces alone. The Vesh opened fire with their energy weapons. Bright blue beams cut through space, trying to track the incoming fighters. But the human pilots were already moving, their craft twisting and turning in patterns that seemed impossible. "How are they doing that?" Quiln asked, his voice shaking. "Those maneuvers should tear the pilots apart." "Humans can handle higher G-forces than most species," Jinwoo explained. "Earth's gravity is stronger than most inhabited worlds. Our bodies adapted to survive it. What would kill you just makes us uncomfortable." The fighters entered the Vesh formation like sharks swimming into a school of fish. Missiles and plasma bolts flew in all directions. Vesh ships tried to target the small craft, but the humans were too fast, too agile. Every time the Vesh aimed at where a fighter was, the human pilot had already moved. Commander Minji's voice came through clearly on the communication channels. "Reaper 2, break left and engage that cruiser. Reaper 5, I need you on my wing. We're going after their flagship." The fighters worked together with coordination that seemed choreographed. They covered each other, drew fire away from damaged wingmates, and struck with precision that spoke of endless training. A Vesh cruiser exploded under concentrated missile fire, then another, then a third. "The Vesh are trying to close the distance," so he reported from the tactical station aboard Indomitable. "They want to bring the fight to close range where their numbers matter." "Let them come," Admiral Taeyang replied. "All ships, implement scatter protocol." The human fleet suddenly broke formation. The massive dreadnoughts and cruisers spread out in seemingly random directions. To the Valen observers, it looked like the fleet was routing. Threx stood up in alarm. "They're retreating! The humans are running!" "No, they're not," Yuna said, studying the tactical display. "Look at their vectors. They're not running away. They're spreading out to maximize firing angles." The Vesh took the bait. Seeing the human fleet scatter, They pushed forward aggressively, trying to overwhelm individual ships before they could regroup. 50 Vesh warships converged on Captain Hyunwoo's dreadnought Indomitable. "They're going to be destroyed," Quiln whispered. But Indomitable didn't run. Instead, the massive warship rotated to face the incoming threat directly. Every weapons system came online simultaneously. Railguns, missile batteries, plasma cannons, and point defense lasers all fired at once. The space around Indomitable lit up like a star. Vesh ships ran straight into a wall of fire. Their shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, overloaded under the sheer volume of incoming fire. When shields failed, the armor beneath couldn't stop solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. 8 Vesh ships were destroyed in the first 30 seconds. 12 more were damaged and falling back. The rest suddenly weren't so eager to close the distance. "Indomitable is holding," the sensor officer reported with disbelief in his voice. "1 ship against 50, and they're winning." Across the battlefield, the other human ships were having similar success. The cruisers used their speed to strike and fade, hitting Vesh formations from unexpected angles. The fighters were everywhere, harassing the larger ships, destroying weapons systems, creating chaos. Kiwon, the chief engineer aboard Indomitable, reported to Captain Hyunwoo. "Reactor is holding steady at 90%. We can maintain this rate of fire for another 20 minutes before we need to cycle the cooling systems." "Make it 30 minutes, Hyunwoo replied calmly. "I don't think this fight will last much longer." He was right. The Vesh were adapting, but they were adapting to a type of warfare they'd never encountered. They were ambush predators by nature, patient and strong, designed to wait and strike with overwhelming force. But humans were pursuit predators. Humans evolved to chase prey across continents, to track and exhaust and overwhelm through relentless pressure. The Vesh wanted to set up kill zones and lure enemies in. The humans refused to cooperate. They kept moving, kept attacking, never giving the Vesh time to establish defensive positions. "Enemy casualties are climbing," Sohee reported. 53 ships destroyed, 32 damaged. They're starting to fall back. But the Vesh commander wasn't giving up. Yuna intercepted his communications to his fleet. The translator made his voice sound like grinding metal. "All ships, prepare boarding parties. We will take their vessels and feast on their crew." Threx turned pale. "They're going to board Indomitable?" "But that ship has hundreds of humans aboard." "Exactly," Jinwoo said quietly. "The Vesh think close combat is their advantage. They're bigger, stronger, with natural armor and claws. They think they'll win in hand-to-hand fighting." "Won't they?" Quiln asked nervously. Yuna thought about the Marines she'd seen preparing the station, thought about Colonel Do-yoon and his soldiers who moved with such deadly efficiency, thought about 8 decades of humanity preparing for the day they'd be needed again. "No," she said. "They really won't." The Vesh boarding craft launched from their flagship, 20 small vessels, each carrying 15 warriors bred specifically for close combat. They accelerated toward Indomitable, which was still engaged with the main Vesh fleet. Captain Hyunwoo watched them come. "Colonel Do-hyun, we have incoming boarders, 20 craft, approximately 300 hostiles." "Copy that, Captain." Do-hyun's voice was calm. "Marines are in position. We'll handle it." The boarding craft attached to Indomitable's hull and began cutting through. Alarms sounded through the ship as hull breaches opened. The Vesh poured in, roaring their war cries, expecting to overwhelm the defenders through sheer ferocity. They found Sergeant Nari's squad waiting for them. The first Vesh warrior through the breach was 3 meters tall, covered in chitinous armor, with claws that could tear through steel. He charged forward with absolute confidence. Nari shot him 3 times in the head with her combat rifle. The armor-piercing rounds punched through his natural armor like it wasn't there. The warrior dropped. The Vesh behind him hesitated. Just for a second. Just long enough. "Fire!" Nari commanded. The corridor lit up with muzzle flashes. The Marines had set up overlapping fields of fire, every angle covered, nowhere to hide. The Vesh were strong and tough, but they were also large targets in a narrow space. The boarding action lasted 4 minutes. When it was over, the 300 Vesh warriors were dead. The Marines had lost 3 soldiers, wounded but alive. Boarding threat neutralized, Do-hyun reported. Suggest you seal those hull breaches when you get a chance, Captain. In space, the battle was reaching its climax. The human fleet had destroyed or disabled over 100 Vesh ships. The remaining enemy vessels were falling back, their formation broken, their confidence shattered. Admiral Taeyang surveyed the battlefield. All ships, pursue and engage. Don't let them regroup. The human fleet advanced as one. The dreadnoughts led the way, their heavy weapons still firing. The cruisers flanked them, cutting off escape routes. The fighters hunted down damaged ships that couldn't keep up with the Vesh retreat. On the research station, Threx sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display. The numbers didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. 17 ships had engaged 200 and were winning. Not just winning, dominating. I don't understand, he said quietly. How is this possible? Yuna moved to stand beside him. You wanted to know why humanity was quarantined? This is why. Not because we're evil, not because we wanted to conquer, because we're good at war, really, really good. And that scared everyone. The coalition fleet had 200 ships before the Vesh destroyed them, Threx said. They couldn't even slow the enemy down. But 17 human ships are destroying the entire Vesh armada. The coalition built their ships for peace, Jinwoo explained. Trading, research, exploration. The humans built their ships for war. Not because they wanted to fight, but because they knew someday someone would need defenders. Through the windows, another Vesh ship exploded. Then another. The human fighters were everywhere, their missiles and guns never stopping. Commander Minji's voice came through the channels. Reaper Squadron, reform on me. We're going after their flagship. The fighters converged into a spearhead formation and accelerated toward the massive Vesh command ship. It was 5 times larger than any human vessel, bristling with weapons. It should have been impossible to approach. The fighters hit it from 6 directions at once. Missiles targeted weapon systems, shield generators, engines. Within 60 seconds, the flagship was crippled and burning. The remaining Vesh ships saw their command vessel die and broke. They turned and fled, jumping to faster-than-light speed as soon as they cleared the gravity well. The battle was over. In less than 90 minutes, the human fleet had destroyed 150 Vesh ships and sent the rest running. Admiral Taeyang's voice came through on all channels. All ships, stand down from combat status. Damage reports to my desk within the hour. Good work, everyone. Yuna looked at Threx. The Valen commander seemed to be in shock. You see now? She asked gently. This is what humanity has been doing for 80 years. Preparing, training, building, waiting for the day when someone needed us. Threx's antenna trembled. I called your species monsters. We are monsters, Yuna replied, but we're your monsters, and sometimes that's exactly what the galaxy needs. The victory celebrations were quiet. That surprised Yuna. She had expected the humans to be loud about their success, but instead they worked with calm efficiency to secure the battlefield and tend to their wounded. Medical Officer Hana moved through Indomitable's corridors with her team, checking every injured Marine. She was gentle but thorough, her hands steady as she treated burns and broken bones. 3 casualties from the boarding action, she reported to Captain Hyun-woo. All stable. They'll be back on duty in a week. Only 3? Threx had come aboard the flagship for a formal meeting. 300 Vesh warriors attacked this ship. You lost only 3 soldiers? We were prepared, Hana said simply. Colonel Do-hyun had his Marines positioned perfectly. The Vesh never had a chance. In the command center, Admiral Tai Yang studied long-range sensor data. His expression was troubled. Yuna noticed immediately. "What's wrong, Admiral?" "We won. The Vesh are running." "For now," Taeyang replied. "But look at these trajectories. The ships that escaped are heading back toward Vesh territory. They'll report what happened here. They'll tell their leadership that they met a species that can fight them." "Isn't that good?" Jinwoo asked. "Won't they leave us alone now?" "Maybe," Taeyang said. "Or maybe they'll come back with 1,000 ships instead of 200. We hurt them today. We need to make sure they understand we can keep hurting them." Dr. Sumin entered the command center. She was a xenopsychologist, one of the few humans who specialized in understanding alien species. She had been studying Vesh communications during the battle. "I have some insights about our enemy," she announced. "The Vesh are a hive species, not like insects, but they have a strong hierarchical structure built on pheromone communication and dominance." "We know they're predators," Threk said. "We know they see other species as prey." "It's more complex than that," Sumin explained. "The Vesh believe they're the apex predators of the galaxy. It's not just culture, it's biology. Their entire evolutionary history taught them they're unbeatable. Today, we proved them wrong. That's going to cause problems." "What kind of problems?" Yunwoo asked. "Either they'll recognize us as equals and avoid human space entirely," Sumin said, "or they'll become obsessed with proving they're still dominant. They'll send everything they have at us to restore their sense of superiority." The sensor officer suddenly called out, "Admiral, new contact on long-range sensors, single ship, Vesh design. It's not running. It's accelerating toward us." Everyone turned to the tactical display. A lone Vesh battleship was coming directly at them at maximum speed. "Is it attacking?" Threx asked nervously. "No weapons charged," the sensor officer reported, "but it's on a collision course with the research station." Understanding hit Yuna like a cold wave. "It's a suicide run. If they can't have the territory, they'll destroy it." Taeyang's jaw tightened. "Time to intercept?" 18 minutes at current speeds. "Can we shoot it down?" "Negative. It's too far out, moving too fast. By the time our weapons are in range, it will already be past us and heading for the station." Threx made a sound of despair. 7,000 people live on that station. We can't evacuate them all in 18 minutes. Captain Yunwoo stood up from his chair. "Admiral, request permission to intercept." Taeyang looked at his captain for a long moment. Both men understood what was being asked. Indomitable was the only ship close enough and fast enough to reach the Vesh battleship before it hit the station. But interception meant collision. It meant sacrifice. "Permission granted," Taeyang said quietly. "May you find calm seas, Captain." "And you fair winds, Admiral." Hyunwoo activated the ship-wide intercom. "All hands, this is the captain. Brace for collision impact. All crew to impact positions. Marines, secure the wounded in medical. Engineering, I need everything you have to the forward shields." Kiwan's voice came back immediately from engineering. "You'll have it, Captain. Forward shields at maximum, reinforcing the prow with emergency power." Yuna watched through the observation windows as Indomitable changed course. The massive dreadnought accelerated toward the incoming Vesh ship. Two giants on a collision trajectory. "This is insane," Quiln whispered. "They're going to ram that ship deliberately?" "The human ship is designed for it," Jinwoo explained, pulling up Indomitable's technical specifications. "Look at the prow. It's reinforced with layers of armor and structural support. The whole ship is built to survive kinetic impacts. But the crew will survive if the captain does his job right." On Indomitable, Hyunwoo watched the Vesh ship grow larger on his screen. The enemy vessel was huge, probably 5 kilometers long. Its commander had locked all controls to forward acceleration. It was a missile now, nothing more. "Evacuate forward sections," Hyunwoo ordered. Everyone to the aft compartments. Seal all bulkheads. The crew moved quickly but calmly. They had trained for this scenario. Every human ship captain knew that sometimes the only way to save others was to put yourself in harm's way. Sergeant Nari helped carry wounded Marines to the rear sections. "Sir, my squad can stay forward to reinforce structural integrity." "Negative?" "Sergeant, get to safety. That's an order." "Yes, sir." Nari saluted and moved aft with her squad. The two ships raced toward each other at a combined speed that made the numbers almost meaningless. 40,000 kilometers per hour, maybe more. "All crew secured," the first officer reported. "Forward sections evacuated. We're as ready as we can be." Hyunwoo sat in his command chair and activated the final safety protocols. Emergency force fields snapped into place around critical sections. The bridge windows polarized to protect against the flash of impact. 10 seconds to collision, the computer announced calmly. Hyunwoo thought about his crew, about the station full of civilians, about the promise humanity had made 80 years ago to never let anyone stand alone against the dark. 5 seconds. He smiled slightly. It was a good promise, worth keeping. Impact. The two ships hit with force that would have shattered planets. Indomitable's reinforced prow punched into the Vesh battleship's center mass. Metal screamed. Shields overloaded. The kinetic energy had to go somewhere. The Vesh ship buckled, its spine breaking in two places. The halves began tumbling apart, momentum carrying the pieces away from each other and away from the station. Indomitable shuddered, but held together. The prow was crushed. The forward armor turned to scrap. But the ship survived. The bulkheads held. The crew, secured in the rear sections, rode out the impact. On the research station, everyone watched in stunned silence as the massive Vesh ship broke apart. Pieces tumbled past them harmlessly, missing the station by hundreds of kilometers. Then they watched Indomitable, damaged but intact, begin the slow process of checking systems and accounting for crew. Hyunwoo's voice came through on all channels, slightly strained but steady. "Damage control teams, report. Medical, status on casualties." The reports came back one by one. Structural damage severe but not catastrophic. Engines still functional. Life support intact. And miraculously, only minor injuries among the crew. "Bridge to Admiral Tai Yang," Hyunwoo said. "Target destroyed. Station is safe. Indomitable is combat ineffective but survivable. Requesting dock for repairs." Tai Yang's voice came back with obvious relief. "Granted, Captain. Well done." Threx collapsed into a chair on the observation deck. "They saved us. They deliberately threw their ship at an enemy to save a station full of people they don't even know." "That's what humans do," Yuna said softly. "We protect. It's who we are." Dr. Suman was already composing her report. "The Vesh broodmaster chose to ram the station rather than retreat. That tells us everything we need to know about their psychology. They cannot accept defeat. This war isn't over." "Then we'll be ready for the next fight," Admiral Taeyang said. He had transported over to the station to meet with the Valen leadership. "But we won't be alone. Counselor Threx, I need to speak with the Galactic Council." Threx looked up. "About what?" "About ending humanity's quarantine, about bringing our fleets into coalition space, about making sure this never happens again." "The Council will never agree," Threx said. "They're terrified of your species." "They're more terrified of the Vesh," Taeyang replied, "and rightly so. 12 worlds burned before you called us. How many more will burn if we're not allowed to help?" A holographic communication platform was set up in the command center. Within hours, representatives from 87 species were connected, their images floating in the air. The council was in chaos. Some species demanded humanity remain quarantined. Others argued for limited cooperation. A few brave voices suggested full integration. But everyone stopped talking when the images came through from the colony worlds. The Vesh had left evidence of their harvesting operations. The council members saw what happened to species the Vesh conquered. It was enough to change minds. The vote was called. Should humanity's military quarantine be ended? Yuna held her breath as the votes were counted. 87 species, each one voting on whether her people would be welcomed back or kept isolated. The results came in slowly. Some voted no immediately. Others debated among themselves first. But in the end, the numbers were clear. 134 votes to end the quarantine, 87 votes to maintain it. Humanity was free. Admiral Tai Yang accepted the decision with quiet dignity. The Third Fleet will remain in this sector to protect against further Vesh incursions. We'll also be sending engineers and supplies to help rebuild the lost colonies. Why? Asked a council member from a species Yuna didn't recognize. Why help us? We locked you away for 80 years. Taeyang's answer was simple. Because you need help. That's all the reason we need. The meeting ended. The council members disconnected one by one, leaving the command center quiet. Yuna looked out at the human fleet, still holding position around the station. 17 ships that had saved an entire sector. 17 ships crewed by people who had been called monsters, but chose to be heroes instead. Threx approached her slowly. I was wrong about your species. I'm sorry. You were afraid, Yuna replied. Fear makes sense. We are dangerous. But dangerous doesn't mean evil. Sometimes the universe needs dangerous people to stand between the innocent and the dark. Outside the windows, Indomitable was beginning its journey to the repair docks. The damaged dreadnought moved slowly but proudly, its crew having proven that humanity's 80 years of preparation had been worth it. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to have Deathworlders as allies instead of enemies. And for the species still hiding in the dark, waiting to prey on the weak, a message had been sent. Humanity was watching, and humanity protected its own. 6 months had passed since the battle at Priima. 6 months that changed everything. Yuna stood on the observation deck of the new Coalition headquarters station, watching construction crews work on the orbital shipyards. Half the workers were Valen or Marathi, the other half were human. They worked side by side, building something the galaxy had never seen before, a joint defense fleet. Amazing, isn't it? Jinwoo joined her at the window. He had been promoted to Chief Science Liaison, coordinating research projects between human and coalition scientists. 6 months ago, we were isolated. Now we're partners. It's still fragile, Yuna cautioned. She had seen the reports. Not every species was happy about humanity's return. Some council members still pushed for renewed quarantine. Some human colonies wanted nothing to do with galactic politics. But the work continued anyway. The door opened, and Admiral Taeyang entered with Counselor Threx. The Valen leader had changed in 6 months. He moved with less certainty now, but also with more wisdom. Seeing your entire civilization nearly destroyed had that effect. The council meeting starts in 10 minutes, Threx said. Are you ready? Yuna nodded. She had been chosen to present the monthly security report. It was an honor she wasn't sure she deserved, but someone had to bridge the gap between human and coalition forces. They made their way to the council chamber. The room was enormous, with holographic platforms for representatives who couldn't attend in person. Today, over 300 species were watching. Yuna stepped up to the central podium. She had prepared her speech carefully, running it past both human and Velan advisors. But standing here, looking at hundreds of alien faces, she decided to speak from her heart instead. 6 months ago, I sent an unauthorized message, she began. I called for help when my commander told me not to. I violated quarantine protocols that had stood for 80 years, and I would do it again. Some council members shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned forward with interest. I would do it again because sometimes following the rules means letting innocent people die. Sometimes peace requires the willingness to fight. Sometimes the only way to stop monsters is to call on people who know how to be monsters too. She pulled up a holographic display showing the sector map. 12 colony worlds were attacked by the Vesh. 8 were completely destroyed before human forces arrived. 4 were saved. In the 6 months since, we've rebuilt 3 of those worlds. The 4th is still being cleared of Vesh biological weapons. The display shifted to show casualty numbers. 4 billion people lived in this sector before the Vesh attacked. 2 billion died. 2 billion survived because humans answered a distress call. A council member from the Karathi Collective, a species of tall, crystalline beings, spoke up. The human fleet destroyed 150 Vesh warships. Your forces showed unprecedented aggression and violence. How can we trust that such violence won't be turned against us? It was the question everyone wanted to ask, but few dared to say out loud. Yuna had expected it. You can't trust it completely. You shouldn't. Humans are dangerous. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. We evolved to be survivors, fighters, hunters. That's what we are. She paused, letting her words sink in. But being dangerous and being evil are different things. A knife is dangerous, but it can cut bread to feed the hungry or cut threats to protect the innocent. Humanity is a knife. We can't change what we are, but we can choose what we do with it. Admiral Taiyang stepped forward to join her. The Third Fleet has spent 6 months in coalition space. We've protected trade routes, responded to distress calls, and provided disaster relief to 4 different species. In that time, we have not fired a single shot at a coalition vessel. We have not threatened any member species. We have not demanded territory or tribute. What do you demand? Asked a council member from a species Yuna didn't recognize. Nothing, Taiyang replied. We're not here to demand. We're here to help. In exchange, you give us something humanity has wanted for 80 years, to not be alone. The chamber fell silent. It was such a simple answer, such a human answer. Dr. Suman presented her analysis of the Vesh threat. The enemy forces we defeated at Prima were a scouting fleet. Intelligence suggests the Vesh Dominion controls over 40 systems. They have thousands of ships. What we fought was less than 10% of their military capacity. Fear rippled through the council. Threx spoke up quickly. Which is why we need humanity. The coalition lost its entire defensive fleet in one engagement. Rebuilding will take years. The humans can protect us while we rebuild. Or, said a skeptical council member, the humans can use our weakness to establish themselves as our overlords. Captain Yunwu, attending via hologram from the repaired Indomitable, responded calmly. If we wanted to be overlords, we would have started already. You're right that you're weak right now. You're vulnerable. You need us more than we need you. If we wanted to conquer, this would be the perfect time. He let that hang in the air for a moment. But we're not conquering. We're building. Look at the shipyards. Look at the joint defense initiatives. Look at the training programs where human Marines are teaching coalition security forces how to fight. We're making you stronger, not keeping you weak. Commander Minji added her perspective. I've been flying training missions with Velan and Marathi pilots. They're learning fast. In a year, they'll be as good as my squadron. In 5 years, they might be better. That's not how conquerors act. That's how allies act. The debate continued for hours. Some council members wanted strict limits on human military presence. Others wanted full integration. A few extremists on both sides argued for complete separation. Finally, the vote was called. Not on whether to maintain quarantine, that had already been decided. This vote was about the future. Should humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Coalition? The votes came in slowly, each species taking time to make their choice. Yuna watched the numbers climb. 200 votes for full membership, 100 against, 50 abstaining. The motion passed. Humanity was no longer just tolerated. They were welcomed. They were members. The celebration was surprisingly quiet. Humans and coalition species gathering in meeting halls across the sector, sharing food and stories. No great speeches, no grand ceremonies, just people trying to understand each other. Yuna found herself at a gathering in one of the station's common areas. Valen civilians mixed with human engineers. Marathi traders talked with human merchants. Children from a dozen species played together, finding games that worked across cultural boundaries. Sergeant Nari sat at a table with several Velan soldiers, teaching them a human card game. "No, you can't eat the cards," she said patiently to a young Velan who had picked one up with his mandibles. "They're for playing, not eating." Colonel Doyun was nearby, discussing tactics with Velan security officers. "The key is redundancy. Always have a backup plan, then have a backup for your backup, then have a backup for that." "Humans think about fighting a lot," one of the Velan officers observed. "We think about surviving," Do-hyun corrected gently. "Fighting is just part of that." Medical Officer Hana had set up a free clinic, treating anyone who needed help. She worked alongside Velan doctors, sharing knowledge, learning about alien biology. "This is fascinating," she said, examining a Marathi patient's bioscan. "Your respiratory system is completely different from ours, but the basic principles are the same." Jinwoo sat with a group of Velan scientists discussing xenobiology. They were planning a joint research expedition to study the recovered colony worlds, to understand how to restore their ecosystems. "Earth went through several mass extinctions," Jinwoo explained. "Life came back every time. We know how to help life recover. We can teach you." Admiral Taiyang stood apart from the celebrations, looking out at the stars. Counselor Threx found him there. "You don't seem happy," Threx observed. "Your species just gained full coalition membership. This is a historic moment." "It is," Taiyang agreed. "But historic moments have a way of leading to historic problems. The Vesh are still out there. They know about us now. They'll be planning their response." "Then we'll be ready," Threx said with surprising confidence. "Together." Taeyang smiled slightly. "Together. 6 months ago, you would never have said that." 6 months ago, I was a fool who thought peace was the absence of conflict." Threx's antenna twitched in what Yuna had learned was the Velan equivalent of a sad smile. "Now I know that real peace is the presence of people willing to defend it." On the other side of the station, Yuna received a communication. It was marked urgent from the frontier colonies. She opened it and felt her blood run cold. Long-range sensors had detected a massive fleet entering the sector. The energy signatures matched Vesh technology, but this wasn't a scouting force. This was an armada, over 1,000 ships. Yuna immediately forwarded the report to Admiral Taeyang. Within minutes, alarms were sounding across the station. The celebration ended as military personnel rushed to their stations. But something was different this time. It wasn't just humans responding. Velan security forces took their positions. Marathi pilots ran to their ships. Engineers from a dozen species rushed to prepare defenses. Admiral Taiyang stood in the command center, surrounded by officers from 6 different species. Captain Hyunwoo's hologram appeared, with Indomitable and the rest of the Third Fleet already moving to intercept positions. "Time until the Vesh fleet arrives," Taeyang asked calmly. 72 hours at current speed," the sensor officer reported. Taeyang studied the tactical display. 1,000 Vesh ships against the human Third Fleet and what remained of the Coalition Defense Forces. The odds were terrible. But they had faced terrible odds before. "Send a message to all human fleets," Taeyang ordered. "Request reinforcements, then contact the Coalition Military Command. It's time to show the Vesh what we can do when we work together." Yuna watched the preparations begin. Ships were positioned, defenses were strengthened, civilians were evacuated to safe zones, and through it all, humans and coalition species worked side by side. She thought about her unauthorized message 6 months ago, the message that had changed everything, the message that had brought humanity back to the galaxy. Jinwoo stood beside her, also watching the preparations. "Are you scared?" he asked. "Terrified," Yuna admitted. "But also hopeful. Look at them. Look at how they're working together. 6 months ago, this would have been impossible." Commander Minji's fighter squadrons were forming up, but now they were joined by Valen and Marathi fighters. The pilots were learning from each other, adapting, growing stronger. Colonel Doyun's Marines stood shoulder to shoulder with coalition soldiers. Different species, different cultures, but all committed to the same goal: protect the innocent. The Vesh were coming with overwhelming force. They were coming to prove they were still the apex predators of the galaxy. They were coming to restore their dominance through violence and terror, but they were going to learn something important, something that humanity had known for a long time. The strongest predator isn't the one that hunts alone. It's the one that knows how to work with a pack. Yuna returned to her communications station and began composing a new message. Not a distress call this time. A warning. "To any Vesh forces listening," she transmitted on all frequencies. "This is the Galactic Coalition. You attacked our worlds. You killed our people. You thought we were prey." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "You were wrong. We are not prey. We are not victims. We are protected. We are defended. We are united. If you come looking for a fight, you will find one. But you will not find easy targets. You will not find helpless colonies. You will find humans and their allies, standing together, ready to defend every world, every station, every innocent life in this sector." She ended the transmission and looked at Admiral Taiyang. He nodded his approval. The Vesh would arrive in 72 hours. They would bring 1,000 ships and expect to sweep through the sector unopposed. Instead, they would find something they had never encountered before: a united galaxy, with humanity standing at the front, ready to prove that Deathworlders made the best defenders. The final battle was coming. But this time, the galaxy would not stand alone. This time, when the darkness came, there would be light to meet it. And that light carried the name of every species that had ever looked at the stars and hoped for something better. It carried the dreams of peaceful traders and curious scientists. It carried the courage of soldiers from 100 worlds. But most of all, it carried the promise that humanity had made 80 years ago and kept ever since. No one stands alone. Not while we're watching. The Deathworlder fleet was ready. The galaxy was ready. Together, they would face whatever came next. And together, they would win.